I thought you'd enjoy seeing how to put together the spring floral arrangement that you can put together and enjoy all summer long.
Forsythia was abundant on the East Coast in Virginia, and I absolutely loved it. It was one of the first signs of spring, and so I wanted to capture that feeling and that moment of springtime by putting some Forsythia in my family room. So I'm going to show you how I did that today. So I'm using some Forsythia looking artificial flowers, and I got these at Joann Fabrics for about $2 a piece on sale, and several branches come in one. I've cut these apart, but they like two of them come on one stem, and each stem was around $2, so it was very economical. So here's one kind I've used, and then for texture, it's always nice to, especially if you're going to use something of one color like I'm doing, I use two different textures here. I thought that would be a nice nice combination. I also grabbed some willow branches from my backyard, and I'm going to use some of that for that natural look. Then you're going to need a little bit of greenery. There's always it's nice when you have stems like this. There's a lot of open space in between, and so to make it fuller and more, and if you don't want it to look all twiggy, it's nice to have a little bit of greenery that you could put at the base and to hide some of those gaps in between the stems. So greenery is nice. And then also you will need Spanish moss. So Spanish moss is for the base to cover the foam. So I bought some of this foam. This is artificial foam. There's some darker green foam that you can use, which you could use for fresh flowers. But the reason why I'm using foam is that I'm going to be using kind of an open topped vase here. This is something I bought for decorating a hair salon, and this is something I have left over in my inventory. So thought I would use this for my base for my flowers. Get some artificial foam, and let's get to it. Okay, so to begin, what we need to do is just take some artificial foam, and I'm going to use that, and I want to cut it with like a bread knife, something with a serrated edge probably. It's easy, and so that's something that's going to fit into your base, whatever base that you choose to use. You can use almost anything for a base of a flower arrangement. Today I'm making a large flower arrangement. Here's just a little simple little thing. When you have like a narrow topped vase, my son made this, and you don't need anything much other than a couple stems to put into it, and it's a sweet little thing that we put by the sink. So if you have a narrow vase, you can just put the stems in it, narrow tops. But if something like this, which is larger, you're going to need some kind of a foam to hold the stems. Otherwise, the stems are just going to flop over. You know, they're very loose. So, all right. So what I'm going to do, you can leave the plastic on if you'd like. One of the things that's, because it's a glass vase, I don't want to have the foam touching the vase, because then I won't be able, I'm going to put Spanish moss between the foam and the edges here. So I want to cut off the corners so that it's not touching the vase, and I have some room to put some of that Spanish moss. All right, so we're going to put the moss at the bottom so that we can, because there's going to be a gap between the foam and the bottom of this curved base. Okay, so then we can put that on top, and then fill in around the foam core with the moss. Simple as that. Just making sure that as you go, that you're pushing the moss down to cover cover the foam so that you don't see the foam, because it doesn't look very natural when you can see the foam, right? So making sure that you can't see it, that there's no gaps. All right, so here we go. That looks good. Actually, there's a little bit more on the bottom there that I see that I want to cover up. I'm using my bread knife to get down there because my fingers aren't long enough. I can get all the way down to the bottom there. All right, so that looks good. You don't see any of the foam, and it's a nice green. All right, so next here is to build, before I'm able to put the stems in, I want to put a little bit of a greenery on the base here. So I'm choosing these, and so what you need to do is just grab your wire cutters. Now you're tempted to just cut at the bottom where the stem meets the side stems meet the main stem, but that's a little bit too long for what I'm intending, and so it's okay to go ahead and cut it even shorter than that if that's what you need. So I'm just going to use a small bit. And so the key to flower arranging is balance. So if I'm going to put a little bit here, I'm going to put one, I'll turn it, one on one side. I want to put one equidistant on the other side so that there's a balance and a symmetry to your floral arrangement. So I'm just going to cut a couple more. And put those on the other two sides so that there's 4 coming from. And so those are going to be like the base. I'm going to actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more because I know that we're going to need some greenery to cover up this base here. Okay. So when you cut your stems, try to cut them. So when I cut this, I don't know if you can see that, but the leaf hits here, but I cut it a little bit high. So when you cut the stem, try to cut it at an angle right where the leaf hits the stem so it looks natural. You don't have like this little thing sticking up. So that's always a nice thing to keep it. That's a nice thing to keep in mind when cutting. Okay, so this, if I measure, so this is about a 7.5 inch base, and then I'm going to cut these. All these are cut. So these are cut around 16 inches. So they're a little bit, just a tad bit over half. And so what you can see is visually where you want it to be. I'm not going to be pushing. In this arrangement, I'm not going to be pushing these all the way to the bottom of my vase because it's obviously going to be shorter. So I don't need to have them as long as if I was going to be putting it to the bottom of the vase. So so I can do is visually, this is about where they will be pushed into, and so I'm just going to go ahead and cut them all now so I don't have to cut them later. Okay, so these are all about the same length, so that's nice. And then one of the things I wanted to show you too is sometimes they come like this, which the artificial flowers sometimes come with this paper wrapping, which is terrible. And if you have that in flower arrangement and you see the white paper underneath, it looks terrible. So one of the things that you can do is, if you haven't worked with, is floral tape. This one's a brown one, but they come in green too. And it's really simple to go ahead and take care of that. So all you have to do is there's a little on the inside, it's a little bit sticky and it's stretchy tape. So what you do is you start it and you wrap it around your floral stem and moving it over to the side as you twist. And so don't try to do it this way because that's really cumbersome. What's easier to do is if you hold it with your hand and you just twist the floral stem with your other hand and wrap as you go. And then you can cover up all that ugly paper tape. And then when you get to the end, it's really simple. And you pull, and so then all that ugly tape is gone. So I did that to a lot of these stems here. These stems were terrible looking. And so if any of that was seen, you might see some white or so it would look really fakey. So I just took some floral tape and wrapped a lot of these ends. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut these as well because I don't want to stop. So it just has to be, it doesn't have to be exact, is that it's all a bunch of textures and mixture of color and texture, like even a green forest is beautiful because there's so many light greens and dark greens and textures and ferny and solid leaves. And so it doesn't have to be like, you don't want it to be all one height. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of these so that they're about approximately what I want. I've cleared my board a little bit and I'm ready to put the flowers in. So this is the fun part. The hard part is getting everything prepared, just like painting. You got to get prepping the space is always the hardest part, but now's the fun part. So we've laid in the foundation greenery to to create the base. And the next part is to create the height. And again, it should be about 1.5 times the height of the vase. So this is 7.5. So we want to go for around 10 to 12 inches. So here's my some willow branches that I took from my backyard. And I'm going to create the height with those branches. And then I'm going to take a piece of green, the same greenery that I used for the base, I'm going to also use for the center. So I'm using this as the center. This is a lot, so I'm going to take a little bit of that off. So I want to create the same. I want to bring the greenery from the base up into the inside of the floral arrangement to kind of create a cohesivity. So you don't want all the green on the bottom and all this yellow on top. You want the green to be mixed in. So I'm going to put a piece of greenery in the center as well. All right, so now all it is, simple enough. Now take your yellow, your main pieces, and start working from the outside of the circle in. Okay, so we're going to go around the outside first by placing this piece, and so always fluff up your pieces as well. Don't just keep them all together. What's nice about artificial greenery is that they can be fluffed up a little bit. So I put one on the right side. I'm going to turn it around and put another piece on the outside of the other side. Okay, and I'm going to work around. I'm going to put a piece on this side. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to put a piece equal on the other side. So now it's all seems balanced and even. You don't want to have more flowers on one side than the other side. Okay, so you work here. So here's their spaces in between. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in some of those spaces. One on this side and another on the opposite side, sticking that into that foam. All right, I'm going to grab, for interest, my smaller flowers. I'm going to stick that one in between the two, and I'm going to flip it and go to the other side. And then just keep continuing to do that all the way around, filling in some spaces, looking at where there's holes, and just being sure, making sure that you're symmetrical as you go along. I'm putting one on this side, and I want to put one on the opposite side. And keep working until you feel like it's full enough that you're happy with it. These are tiny. I like the daintiness of that. But now I'm working working towards the inside. So now I've done the outside, and so now I'm fitting in right next to those center pieces and filling in those spaces. Make sense? Okay. And then you always stand back and look at your arrangement and see what you think. See, and look at it and see if you're happy with the way it's turned out. And if there's any holes, like I see a little bit of a hole here, there's no greenery, and you can see some of the stems. I'm not real happy with that. So what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of my greenery. See that hole there? I'm just gonna put a little greenery in there to kind of just fill that in a little bit. Okay, I think I'd like to have a little bit more yellow. It just seems like that's what I'm loving, is the forsythia, and the green is kind of like overpowering. And that's one of the things you can also do. You can always edit and take out. So if you're not happy with it, you can always take some things out. It's very forgiving to do floral arrangements. It's very subjective, but the key to don't be scared of them. It's basically all about balance. Put one on one side, put the other on the other, and just keep rotating. If you only have 3 of something, make them equal distance apart instead of 4. You don't have to have everything balanced, but they don't have to be equal in number, but they do need to be balanced. All right, and there you have it. So it's just as easy as that, and that's going to be sitting on my, it'll probably be on my coffee table for the rest of the summer, and it'll be reminding me of the forsythia of Virginia. If you enjoyed the video, please, as you all know, subscribe to my channel to learn more home decor tips, and give it a thumbs up if you want to see some more floral videos like this one.